Well, Cougar fans, we have something very special for you this season. Here to make us all smarter every week is the WSU legendary quarterback turned color commentator and analyst, Alex Brink. We'll be talking with him every week about the Cougars game that just happened and looking forward to the one this coming weekend. Alex, so good to have you on board this year.
Oh, I sure appreciate you guys having me. Thanks. The big go Cougs.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. The Cougars are 1-0 after a win over Idaho in their season opener, their home opener. Of course, the biggest storyline coming out of that game has to be Jaxon Potter being named QB1. Jimmy Rogers played his cards very close to the vest of who would be the starting quarterback, and it was number 5 out there. Immediate takeaways from what you saw from Jaxon out there and, where he can improve, but where he also had success.
Yeah, frankly, I was really impressed with Jaxon Potter. I think he was actually one of the bright spots of the game offensively. He did a lot of really good things. He had a couple errant throws in there, and I think Coach Rogers alluded to that, but it's kind of to be expected to some degree, in my opinion, with a first-time starter. And so, I think again, there was a little bit of rhetoric about having Duggar come in and those sort of things. Look, in the end, Jaxon Potter did an incredible job of managing his emotions and managing that situation and leading the team to victory with that game-winning drive that led to the field goal. So I think what the coaches and Jaxon Potter can take from this is that they maybe can lean into number 5 a little bit more. He's a young player. He'll make his mistakes, but he's got a big arm. He's very accurate. He's actually more athletic than people give him credit for. You saw him throw a bunch of balls on the run very accurately. And I would imagine that the coaches and Coach Danny Freund, the offensive coordinator, will really lean into that.
Coach Rogers, has pointed out multiple times since we talked to him about Potter that he doesn't take sacks, and that was something that was very evident. When you see a young quarterback like that in a situation where he can drive down the field, go get a game-winning score, and have that kind of emotional victory after a game with some up and downs, what does that do for a young quarterback's confidence and the entire offense?
Well, Jimmy Rogers said this to me after the game on the broadcast when I was interviewing him in the locker room. He said that although this was certainly not perfect by any means, this team will be better because of that experience, right? Jack Stevens gets a game-winning kick under his belt. You get a game-winning drive from your young starting quarterback. All those young and new players get to experience that. So in the end, I think when I talked also to Jaxon Potter afterwards, he said he felt his best during that 2-minute drill at the end of the game because he felt like he just got kind of back into that flow state, right? Like he was in practice, or they've repped that 2-minute drill so many times. And so for a young player, he's going to remember that and try to emulate the rest of the game, the rest of those 4 quarters, as much as he can, that feeling that he had. It's easy. Look, I've been there. It's easy to get caught up in some of the emotion of what's going on. It's easy to overthink a little bit, feel like maybe you need to do a little bit extra. And when he found himself in that 2-minute drill in a situation he really repped and knew, he just was himself and he executed flawlessly. And I think that's the biggest thing he can take from it.
I was really impressed with Zevi Eckhaus because you saw him on the sideline. He didn't just slink to the back of the sideline, wait to get in the locker room, take his pads off. He was out there. He was giving high fives. He was encouraging Jaxon, especially before that last drive. This is a tough situation for him. Let's just be very honest. You come back after performing so well in the bowl game. You think maybe you have a chance to be the starting quarterback. Who knows how the season goes? But at least right now, it's Jaxon Potter's job as QB1. Just what do you think that says about Zevi's leadership? I mean, we really kind of got introduced to him at the end of last season, didn't really have too much time with him. But what does that say about a veteran quarterback like that taking a younger quarterback under his wing?
Zevi Eckhaus is a fantastic leader, and I kind of had a front row view to this before the game. I'm looking down from the box as, I knew Jaxon Potter was going to be the starter, and so I'm kind of watching all that interaction play out. And as the quarterbacks are warming up, right before it's his time to go out, right? Him and Zevi are warming up together, and as all of a sudden it's time to go and get in the huddle, Zevi Eckhaus goes up to Jaxon Potter and he embraces him, and I see him give this big hug, and he's talking into his ear, and I can only imagine what Zevi Eckhaus is telling Jaxon Potter. And it reminds me of one of my first days at Washington State. Tim Rosenbaugh, the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, sat us down, all the quarterbacks, in our meeting room. There was like 6 or 7 of us at the time. And he looks around the table and he says, listen, quarterback position is different. Only one of you is going to start in this room. And so when you're on the field, you need to compete. And that's what we do, is when we're in between the lines, we compete. But when we're in this room and we're off the field, we support each other 100%. And so I think that's the reality of playing quarterback. We choose to play the position. We know what it is. And Zevi Eckhaus understands that. And he really is a true leader and somebody we should all be proud that is wearing the crimson and gray.
Well, one thing that has to get cleaned up, Jimmy Rogers said it after the game. He said it in his Monday presser this week, is the running game. Obviously, it was very bottled up against Idaho. Was there anything that stood out from you with that bird's eye view from up in the press box that led to maybe some of those struggles running the football?
Certainly, and I got a chance to go back and watch the film also, so I have a few different angles on it. And there's a couple things that stood out. One, I think Idaho had a really good game plan. You got to give them some credit. The strength of their defense is their defensive line and linebackers, and I think they listened to the rhetoric all offseason about how Jimmy Rogers wanted to run the football. They saw what South Dakota State had done in the previous seasons and what Danny Freund liked to do schematically. I think they decided that they were going to sell out on the run, and they had committed 6, 7, 8 guys into the box pretty consistently. And you saw those extra numbers really become a problem. But really the most glaring issue, and one that you can really attribute to inexperience and youth and kind of a first game, is that you had some young players on the offensive line, some new players on the offensive line that looked like they were a little bit lost. And that's bound to happen. There was just flat misses at the point of attack, guys going the wrong direction and leaving defensive linemen unblocked. And so in the end, those are things you can adjust. Those are mental errors, not necessarily physical issues that you can sort out, right? Practice is not like a game. It doesn't always happen the way you prep for it. And that's where offensive linemen and the coaches can get themselves ready to go and play as a unit, right? Play as all five, at all five as one. And so I see the running game as something that can really improve because there was opportunity, right? There was a block away or a guy away. But that's the hard part about establishing the run game. Everybody's got to be working together. So I look to see Washington State clean that up. I think some of those young players on the offensive line are going to get better. They're going to improve. And they're going to be able to communicate better. And that's going to lead to some bigger opportunities.
From a grand scheme of things, how do you think Jimmy Rogers approached his first game here at WCU? This is a guy with a wealth of coaching experience as a head coach as well at South Dakota State, but this was his first time in this situation. Obviously, something that stands out was maybe the quarterback change going to Duggar for those couple of drives. But just from a grand scheme of things, how do you think Coach Rogers approached the game plan, the play calling? I know is more of Coach Freund's territory, but just what did you see from Coach Rogers in game one?
Well, in general, going into the game, I said a lot that one of the things I loved most about Jimmy Rogers was his radical candor, right? He tells it like it is. And I thought he kind of handled this game very similarly, right? At the end of the game, he comes out and he just flat says, he looks at the stats and he's like, boy, this is embarrassing, right? And that, like, he's right. You could try and put a varnish on it, but in the end, like, it just was what it was. It wasn't very good, and he admitted that. And in the end, 1-0 is better than 0-1. But I think what I liked about Jimmy Rogers, even with the quarterback decision, he gave a good reason why he went to Duggar. But he also said, we probably should have stuck with Potter after I looked at it because Potter was playing pretty well, and I think that's true. But you kind of make those decisions in game and you own it. And specifically with the Duggar situation, he was about a fingernail away from scoring a touchdown and would have made the coaches look like a genius. Just barely got tripped up, and that's part of it. That's part of football. So I thought Jimmy Rogers handled this situation really well. He didn't make excuses. He said, hey, we're going to clean this up and get better. He also acknowledged that there were some bright spots. And, I think that shows the sign of maturity for a young coach, but also one that has a lot of experience under his belt.
Yeah, it's nice to hear Jimmy, in the post-game press conference and then also in his Monday press conference. I mean, he'll tell you like it is, but he also says he doesn't want a tree to win like a loss. Obviously, he's very happy to be 1-0, and as of all Cougar
Right.
fans, let's look ahead to how the Cougs are going to try and get 2-0. San Diego State team coming to town on Saturday that had a really good performance against Stony Brook. Just what do you think is the key to success for this game? Do you need to see more out of Potter? Do you need to see the defense even take that to another level? We didn't really even talk about the defense just because they were so good. Just what do you think is the key to victory for the Cougs this weekend?
Well, I think in general, you're facing an opponent that, probably has a little deeper roster than what you saw against Idaho. Some really talented players, a bunch of guys in the transfer portal, starting with the quarterback, Jaden Denegal, came over from Michigan, is a really good athlete. So 2 weeks in a row, you're going to see a good athlete at quarterback. I think the San Diego State defense is also really talented, new coordinator, some transfers on the defensive line, one of the best pass rushers in the country. I mean, you're going to have to protect, right? But again, the reason you went with Jaxon Potter to hear Jimmy Rogers tell it is because he gets the ball out quick. He doesn't take a lot of sacks, and they feel like he can win in the pass game. So in my opinion, this is a little, again, one of those weeks where it's a lot about you. It's hard to tell who San Diego State is after playing Stony Brook. And so you need to focus on the areas you can get better. I think offensively, lean into that pass game a little bit more. The receiver group is a real bright spot. You can lean into those guys, spread the field, sideline to sideline, make that defense run, and then you can hit it downhill with the running game. And I think that would really take some pressure off the offensive line. Defensively, yeah, you said it. I mean, defense played really well, but there are moments, right, that they can get better. They're going to face better athletes. They're going to face different schemes, and they need to continue to rally to the football and make sure that they're tackling an open space. I thought the D line for the Cougars was a real bright spot because you just didn't really know, right? Ray Stevenson's been around. Isaac Terrell has been around, but we hadn't really seen them, and they were really, really good. And I thought the interior was kind of a rotation of guys, but overall really solid. So I'm excited to see that defense get back out on the field. If that can be the calling card for this Coug defense this season, I think in the end that bodes well.
It's worked well in the past, absolutely. If there was one thing on the Alex Brink wish list, one thing you need to see the Cougars execute this week, what is it?
Well, Washington State's best offensive series, the one that led to a touchdown, featured a lot of play action pass. Play action pass to Jeremiah Noga, play action pass to Josh Meredith, play action pass to Jeremiah Noga again, now that I think about it, and then ultimately the sprint out for a touchdown to Meredith and on fourth down. And so for me, I want to see the use of that play action pass on offense. I think even when you're not running the football, teams are committed and scared of what could be a great Washington State running back room. I think you lean into play action pass, you get the ball on the perimeter to the receivers, and that's going to open everything else up.
See, Cougar fans, this is why we brought him in. We're all smarter because of it. Alex, tell the folks where else they can see you if they want to hear more from you leading up to game week.
Yeah, certainly. You can find me on X at Alex Brink 10. Always love talking ball. Michael Bumpus and I have our show on Root Sports Northwest, also re-airs on YouTube, Talking Cougars. Please check that out at all times. Typically, I'm on the broadcast also as the radio analyst. This week, I'm doing something kind of fun. I will be on the CW on the sideline as the analyst doing the TV this week. So super fired up for that if you're watching the game on TV. And my man, Grady Emerson, will be filling in for me with Chris King.
We got that TV smile working already, and we're happy for it. So, Alex Brink, thank you so much again. We are going to be doing this every week this season, talking the good, the bad, and whatever comes in between. So, Alex, thank you so much. Hope to talk to you next week after the Cougs are 2-0.
Thanks, brother. Happy to be here. Go Cougs.